is The Orange Zone, sponsored by Apex Entertainment.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into another edition, a special edition, I should say, of the Orange Zone podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and I'm sure many of our listeners know who that is. We have Syracuse men's basketball former head coach Jim Boeheim with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, it's fun. It's I think my first podcast, so
really?
I probably won't be very good, but I'll do my best.
There you go. We're ushering in a new era, your podcasting era. Right? He's already working with the ACC Network, so it feels like it should be a seamless transition. He's got it down. Just to go over it, even though I'm sure many of you know Jim Boeheim's resume, he guided the Orange to winning records in 46 of 47 seasons and pushed Syracuse into the postseason in all but 5 of his seasons. Syracuse made 35 trips to the NCAA. The Orange won the national championship in 2003, and Boeheim was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2005. That's a long list of accomplishments right there.
Well, it's a long year, a lot of years. You coach that long, you got to win some games.
Good things are bound to happen.
Got to upset some people sometimes, which I did, I'm sure. But that's all part of the job.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, just to start, we'd love to just know how life has been for you outside of the basketball world.
Well, it's been good. Obviously, I think I got out at the right time. I mean, it was the NIL thing is just, it's what it is, and it's not a lot of fun for coaches, and reconstructing your team every year, and the money comes into play. The teams that have the most money are the teams that are winning, and you see the football thing came out today. All the teams that are playing in the playoffs spent the most money, and that's the way it is. And you can't blame players for that. Mm-hmm. They're cashing in, and they should. Someday we'll get some structure where you have some kind of a salary cap like you do in the NBA and NFL, and there'll be some limit to how many times you can transfer. That type of thing. That's necessary, but other than that, it's here to stay. But I was fortunate when I got out. I worked some for the university. I do ACC Network games, which is good. One a week, just enough to get away, and do some other things. We were active with our foundation, trying to raise money for the Boys and Girls Clubs and kids in general. So we keep doing that, and it's busy enough.
Yeah, you mentioned your work with the ACC Network. You said that you're doing 20 games this year. I want to know kind of how your perspective on the game changed when you shifted from a head coach to really more of that analyst role.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care as much as I did before. I mean,
it's not your problem anymore.
It's not my problem. But when you coach here and there's 30,000 people here, you don't want to walk out of there with a loss, because then 30,000 people won't like you. So you try to win. But when you do the games, I love basketball. I watch all the games anyway. I've seen all the ACC teams play this year already, and had Duke a couple times, and. It's I like going and doing the games. You see, the fans have been great. They love me now. I mean, it's just everywhere I go, they're, Coach, how you doing? That type of thing. And, watch basketball and talk about it. I mean, it's not hard. It's, just give my perspective on what's going on in the game. And, that's what they want me to do, and it's fun doing that. So one game a week is good, and then because it's 3 days for one game, so by the time you go and do the game, come back, you're gone 3 days. So it's been a good thing.
Are you still teaching for the university as well?
Well, I did do it. I had my first teaching experience at the Falk School, sports management leadership class, and I was spoiled. It's like if you're a coach and you have great players like we've had, and like the Olympic team we had, I had great students. I mean, I had 21 students that I didn't really ask them, but I bet the lowest student in there was like a 3.8 or something. They're all Newhouse people and Falk people, and I learned a lot just doing the class. And we had, Coach Krzyzewski came in, Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, the Big East commissioner, Val Ackerman, did a Zoom in with us. And so we had a lot of people Zoom in about leadership, and the students were great. They had a lot of ideas, and actually, it's a 3-hour class. So the first day I started, I did the whole 3 hours, and I said, this is not going to work.
It's pretty long.
I've told most of my stories, and we had books assigned, and Professor Burton worked with me in the class, but we started to Zoom people in, and then we talked about what they talked about, and really got some good ideas, and great leaders. We had great leaders in there, and that's where you learn.
What do you feel was one of the most important lessons that you were able to teach these students about leadership?
I talked to them about what my philosophy is in terms of, there's a certain number of things everybody agrees, leadership and, set the example and know what you're talking about. That's always important. And to try to stress how you have to work together with people if you're a leader and listen to people. But I've always felt from my very beginning that it's about how the work you put in. And you're going to face adversity, and how do you react to that? That's what leadership is. It's things. When things go well, anybody can lead the ship. It's not hard. But when things aren't going well, then that's when you have to be able to fight your way through it as a leader and as a follower, as a player. And I think it's important for everybody to understand there's leadership at every level. You have to lead. If you're on a team, you have to be a leader. You have to have leadership qualities. And in anything you do. In business, if you're working in broadcasting, you have to be a leader too. You have to have those qualities. But I think it's important for students to learn and listen to people who've been there, and Coach K talked about Duke, talked about the Olympic team and how that was organized and how putting a lot of different personalities together, and that's a lot of leadership in those situations. It's very important. But the class was great. 3 hours is a long time with students.
It really is.
But the Zoom helped. We'd Zoom for an hour and then talk about it for an hour and a half or so. But the time goes by. We went to every class, went the whole 3 hours, and it was never felt like it was a struggle to get through it. But it was fun. And again, I think the big reason we had great students, and nobody looked at their phone for 3 hours, and that's hard to do. It's hard to
important
get. Win in and of itself, right?
Hard to get people to do that, but that's a win. But they were good. It was fun, really fun.
Less screen time, always a positive in this day and age. Over to your sons, Buddy and Jimmy, obviously both still playing now. How did your perspective, after 40 years of being a head coach, think you've seen it all, but you haven't coached your sons at the collegiate level yet. How did your perspective kind of shift, when you got them for the last few years last year of Jimmy's career and then Buddy?
It was great to have them. It's hard to coach your sons because what you're trying to do is win the game, and yet as a parent, you want your sons to play well. That's just the other side. You're hoping they play well, but the object's still to win the game, and so it was a great experience. I enjoyed it, but they're still playing. One's playing in Europe. Jimmy's been in Europe for 3 years. He's been in Greece, Czech Republic, Germany. Now he's in Portugal, and he likes the experience. He likes being over there. And Buddy's in the G League, second year. He's been hurt this year, but he should start playing pretty soon. He's with Oklahoma City, great organization, so he loves it there. But they're still playing, and it's like Jimmy says, this is a lot better than working.
It's true.
So I think that's it.
Well said.
Better than a 9 to 5.
How's your daughter doing?
She's good. She was in New York for a year, and she's back here working at Upstate in social worker. And she likes it, really likes it. And she likes Syracuse. She likes being here. We all do. We all like being here. I'm still here. I'm not going to Florida. I like it right here.
Do the boys ever call you up for advice still, or do they not want to hear it anymore?
No, they listen. We talk. I'll watch. I can see every game. That's the great thing. I watch Jimmy every game he plays in Portugal, and I'll just briefly say something about something. It was your foul shot. You stepped off the line before you finished. Something like that.
Yeah.
But he's a good player. He's smart. And Buddy, same thing. We'll talk about the game, but not a lot. We're we're past that now. We just kind of talk about life mostly now and stuff, playing golf and stuff like that. That's what we like to do. We play golf in the summertime, and they hit it a long ways, but they still can't really beat me. So that's a good,
nice.
That's a good thing.
That's
still
a
have
great
that
thing.
It's a competition, and that's the other thing in the leadership group. It's the hard work, but it's really about competing. I think if you learn how to compete, you'll be good at anything. You'll be reasonably good at anything.
I think that's well said. Now, obviously, you're not coaching Syracuse men's basketball anymore, but you have that affiliation still.
Sure.
How often are you up there at practices? What's your involvement been?
No, I'm not involved. I am up. I go to practice. I watch them. I talk to the coaches, talk to the players a little bit, and but I'm not involved in coaching anymore. They've improved this year. They improved their team tremendously from last year. One of the things is when your best player's out for the key games, it's very hard to judge a team. You just you take Burrow off the Cincinnati Bengals. They win too many games. I mean, that's the way it works. Your quarterback goes down. We lost our quarterback in football this year. It didn't work very well after that. There's certain guys you can't lose. Donnie Freeman's a tremendous player, and he affects the game on both ends because he's the best rebounder. He's a good defensive player. He can block shots, and he can score. So when you lose a guy like that, it's not like you can replace him. You can't. You try to make up for it, and I think they have. And their defense has been good, and they really struggle scoring inside, and their shooting hasn't been good, and that's not much. You keep working on that, but when you don't make shots, you don't win games, and that's the way it works. But they had a little bit more money this year. I think they still have to upgrade both football and basketball here in terms of the money you spend on NIL, because if you look at the top teams, that's who's spending money on NIL. And a good friend of mine knows the Oregon program, and they spent $40 million on football. So you're going to win when you do that, even if you don't know what you're doing. And it's also possible, some schools, Florida State, spend a lot of money on football, and they're not winning. It's not a guarantee that you're going to win. Mm-hmm. But if you don't spend money, you're not going to, be able to really compete, I think, at the highest level. And we did much better this year, and I think our team is better. But, it's just so hard to lose your best player when he's a big guy. It's not like you're losing a guard or, a small forward. He can play inside, play center, he can play power forward. So that's a huge loss, and I hope he gets back, but, I don't know really what the answer is there.
Yeah, you mentioned how even without Donnie, I think this team is much improved this year. When you see the way they played against Houston, obviously lost that game, but took them to overtime. When you see them beat Tennessee, what do you see as really like the ceiling for this team, maybe if Donnie returns?
Well, I think that's an X factor. Without him, I think it's difficult. But in reality, if they make their free throws, they beat Houston and they beat Hofstra. And they're 8-2 and probably ranked and are close. And it's not, you're not asking that, well, they had to make this or they had to stop this or they had to do this. They had to make a couple free throws. And, if they make a couple free throws in those two games, they win. And they'll shoot better from the free throw line, but they're not a great free throw shooting team, not a great shooting team. But I think they will get better from the line. They need to use these next 3 games to play and, try to get better. And then hope that Donnie comes back and you can then fit him back in. That's not always easy either. But the league has got a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of pretty good teams in the league. So there's quad 1 games to win. And their way to the tournament is to do well in the league. I mean, you'd like to have won another game in the non-conference. That's true. That's for sure. But to get into the NCAA tournament, you got to have quad 1 wins, and you got to get them. You can get them this year in the league, and if you're in the top our league is much better. The top, we should get 6, 7, or 8 bids this year in that area, and so you have to be up in that area to get bids. And the league is really much better this year.
You did mention free throws. I'm just curious from the coaching standpoint, is getting better at free throws simply a matter of continuing to shoot free throws, or is there more to it than that?
There's a lot more to it than that. I laugh. I don't listen to talk radio much, but if I'm in the car, I'll listen a little bit. And, people call and say, well, their coaches are bad. They're not practicing free. They practice free throws every day. But it becomes a mental thing. I had some bad free throw shooting teams, but we were so physical, and our big guys were getting fouled, and they're not good free throw shooters. But at the end of the game, we made more free throws than the other team shot, even though we didn't shoot a high percentage. And you have to understand something, and this is something nobody talks about. If you get 20 free throws in a game normally, you might get more, but say you get 20 and you make 14. That's 70%, not bad. You shoot 60%, everybody says that's awful. That's 12. So in other words, you're down 2 points. It's not like you're down 10 points. It's 2 points. So you can still win the game. Now, when you're shooting 29 free throws like we did against Houston and making 12, that's going to cost you a game, 17 misses. And like I said, if they'd have shot 60% in that game, they would have won the game. Mm-hmm. If they made 15 free throws, 16 really, they would have won the game. So it's not a lot. It looks like a lot. When they say they're the last in the country. Yeah, well, it's 60, but it's 65, you'd be 150, and at 70, you'd be in the top 100.
Yep.
And it's 2 points. It's not as many points as people like to talk about it. And you can still win games, and you can win games shooting. We've shot poorly in those games, too, for both Houston and we should beat Hofstra. They're much better than people want to give them credit for. They shot 65% from the three. They're a 30% shooting, three-point shooting team. They shoot 65% from three. They're going to give anybody a lot of trouble. And if you miss free throws and you don't have your best player, that's all going to add in there. But, fans are, they want to win the game. It doesn't matter that Donnie Freeman's hurt. It doesn't matter that something, and it always comes, whether it's the coach's fault. It's just the way it works. And
but you think it's more complicated than that?
Well, yeah, it's always more complicated than that. I always try to. You win as a team, you lose as a team, and it's not because you missed this free throw or that. It's because of everything. It's because you didn't rebound it well. You missed too many shots. You gave up too many easy shots. It's a combination of all that. That's how you lose the game. And it all comes back to the coach because he's in charge. So that's fair. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just part of coaching. You take responsibility for the game. But it's not like the coach didn't do something right. They practice against zones. They know what to do against zones. They didn't really execute very well. But then they did when they had to. They got some buckets, and they made 2 great steals and put themselves in position to win in a game that the opponent played out of their minds. And it comes down to a call. Both calls at the end of the game, nobody touched the ball going out of bounds. I don't know. I can't see that while I'm 81 years old, but I could see nobody touched the ball. They can't see that. And then there's a foul 2 feet from the referee. This is 2 feet, literally 2 feet from him. He grabbed his arm. He didn't hit the ball. He grabbed his arm. And, you got to call that. That's got to be called. That's the difference between winning and losing. And, that's what happened. But, I just would love to see them get Donnie back and healthy and see what they can do because they need that other guy who can, even if he didn't score a lot, which he will score, but he rebounds and he blocks shots. So he's somebody the other team has to worry about. So that opens it up for other guys. And I just think this team is playing as hard as they can, and I think they can get better and have a chance. It's not going to be easy. Nothing's that easy in college basketball because teams at a lower level have good players now too, because they're moving around and dropping around, and everybody can get some players. So it'll be very difficult. Every game will matter, and hopefully they'll get better and be ready for the conference season.
You know, from your perspective, from a both talent acquisition standpoint and a recruiting standpoint, do you think this is the most talented team that Coach Autry has had in year 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was way better than last year's team. Last year, the team, they had no money, and they had to settle for certain types of players, and they just didn't get good players. And I thought they played hard. I thought they tried. They just couldn't stop anybody. But this year, they're much better defensively. William Kyle is a big difference maker in defense. He's as hard a player, a hard-working player that I've ever seen at Syracuse. I mean, he goes after everything. The first day I saw him up there, he went after like 4 balls in a row, like just like a man on a mission. And it was summer, summer basketball. That's the way he plays, and he helps their defense because he can help guys that maybe can't stop a guy, but he can help them. And they have pieces. Nate George, I think, is a good player. He played well at Georgia Tech. He just hasn't played well, and he can play well. So I think those things can turn a little bit, but they're way better. They had more money. They got into the transfer portal early, and they retained Donnie, which has not helped yet. But JJ's been a little up and down, but he's a good player. And I still think they can easily accomplish a lot this year, but it's not going to be easy because the league is way better this year.
You keep bringing up money and NIL in a way. How do you think Syracuse improves their position in terms of improving those resources?
Well, they have to decide at the highest level of the university that we're going to, fully fund, which is the $20 million, and then there's collectives, because these schools, even though they say they're going to try to control it to the 20, it's not going to happen. There's still going to be collectives, and there's still going to be people paying more than the $20 million. So my guess next year, to be good in football, Fran Brown's a really good recruiter. That helps too. You can still recruit, but at the end of the day, you got to be able to come really close money-wise, so you're not getting somebody. They probably need $20 million, $22 million. And basketball needs $10 million, and that's 22. That's $32 million. That's a lot. They can pay the $20 million for school, but then you got to raise $20 million more or $10 million more, and that's what they, in my opinion, what has to happen. You can't do it with $20 million. Just can't be done.
You said basketball has about $10 million. Where do you estimate they need? I'm sorry.
I'd say they need 10. I think that's roughly what the teams in the league that are winning, and SEC teams, that's roughly. Some are spending more. I mean, but I think the one good thing about basketball, there's a lot of players out there. There's players at lower levels that can come up, and there's players that are pretty good at a medium level that could still be good at this level. So I think you can get players, and then it's a matter of coaching and get them together and playing. But, Louisville went right out and got 2 really great players, and they had a great freshman, so now they're good. Duke is always going to get players. Carolina spent a lot of money, and they got 2 of the very best transfer portal guys. So that's really what it takes, and you look forward to the future. We lose a lot of guys. We have to have big guys,
right? And
those are the hardest guys to get.
Where do you estimate, if you think they need $10 million, where do you estimate they are right now?
I don't know. I'm not involved. I know that's what I see from being around talking to coaches and people in the game. That's roughly where it's going to. They're trying to limit it by this board that's going to review things, but
sure.
I don't think that'll work.
We have spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about how right now feels like the wild, wild west of college athletics, because there's not a lot of guardrails, when it comes to NIL. Do you feel like we've discussed that. What do we honestly think? Is it a good thing that players are being paid, or do you feel like it's changed the game too much?
Well, it's not good or bad. It's it. In other words, it's just, this is what it is. It's there's no reason to debate whether we like this or don't like it. This is what's reality. There will probably be some guardrails on someday. I don't look to Congress to help us with that. They have trouble turning the lights on down there. But we have to figure out a way. It can be that you can't have employees, because then every athlete's an employee. You can't do that. And you have to have you can have employee status. The government has to do something there. And then you have collective bargaining. Then you have a structure, a salary cap, and you contract and you sign for 2 years or 3, whatever, or maybe 1, or whatever you sign, and then you have to abide by the contract. And that's coming, but it's not coming right away. So until then, you're going to have people that will pay $2 or $3 million to get a quarterback, or $4 million or $5 million. The thing when this all happened, some people said, "Well, this will be all right. Players will get their autograph money in their camp." No. This was always going to be about alumni who want to win. And a guy sold his oil company for $4.4 billion. So he gave Texas Tech $30 million. He didn't even know it was gone. I mean, $30 million is
crazy.
Like going out to lunch for us.
Yeah.
And so because they want to win, and it's legal. So
right,
supply and demand.
That's what it is. Phil Knight does the Oregon program. They call Phil Knight. How much you need? He writes the check. That's the way it works. And the St. John's, Rick Pitino's a very good friend of mine, great coach. He has one guy that is a big St. John's guy, and he's a billionaire, and he funds their NIL. And it's not even money to the guy.
All it takes is a billionaire. Got it.
That's all it takes. You have a billionaire, you're going to have a good program. But, those are not easy to find. And, a lot of old school people with money don't want to do NIL. But then all they're telling me when they say that is you don't want to win.
And I do understand that too.
That's what it is.
Well, listen, it's interesting because you know how you had said, previously that the fans don't care, they want to see wins. Yeah. I think that's really true in part with NIL, with also some of the challenges that fans don't necessarily see. I feel like that's even true in broadcasting. Like, I remember a professor telling me, the viewer doesn't care. I think that's totally true. You can get rained on, your car could break down, people want to see TV at a certain time. With that being said, there's been a lot of, discussion amongst fans about patience versus urgency in this new head coaching era. You, with your perspective, all of the coaching that you've done over the course of your career, from your perspective, how long do you think is fair for a new head coach to kind of develop, his process?
Every coach should get 5 years. That's what I got when I started. And I think it takes 5 years to figure everything out. It's more difficult now because of the money. You can't build your team. Before, you could start seeing a coach after 3 years. He's building his team. He's got guys here. Next year they're going to be good, and everything's fine. But now it's rebuild every year, and you're putting a coach in a position of I've got to have enough money to get good players. And when you put a coach in a position where he can't get good players, it doesn't do any good to get a new coach. You have to have the money first and give the coach the opportunity over a 4 or 5 year period and see if he can get the players and put them together. But if you start with not enough money, you're going to be limited to what kind of team you're going to have. It's just the way it is. I mean, the Indiana coach is a great coach, but he got money. They paid a lot of money to get players, and he was smart, got the right players, and he's a really good coach. But Florida State, I think the coach was pretty good. He had $25 million, and they can't win. So he was 11-0 2 years ago. So it's about getting the right players, and that's not just money, but it's at the end of the day you got to have money to get there. And but any coach, needs time to establish his program, even in this era today. And it's a matter of getting the right players today. And if you do, you'll win. But it's people have no patience, and that's just the way it works, But by the same token, people want to. I remember when people used to say Syracuse doesn't spend enough money on facilities or whatever, and we were winning, so they didn't really say it to us. But what I say to them, well, now fans can pay. These other programs are not winning with the school's money. They're winning with their fans' money.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The fans are paying. They're paying for the program. They're rich fans.
Definitely.
But they're fans. But even in a situation where you have 500 businesses in Syracuse, if they all took one player, we'd be fine.
Right. That's actually an interesting model.
They wouldn't even have to like you get two businesses to take a player.
Yep.
That's a model that's been looked at, but is difficult to do, and it just comes down to having people with money that want to support your program and win, and that's what it takes. And then you have a chance. It's not a guarantee, but you do have a better chance. We did spend more money this year. We have a better team, a lot better team. And if Donnie was healthy, I think we would have already shown that. I think we would have won at least a couple more games. So.
And when you look at sort of that timeline for evaluating, a tenure of any coach in any sport, what, I guess, factors are the biggest indicators to you in terms of you're growing something, you're building towards success? Is it recruiting? Is it player development? Is it just the record?
Well, it's a whole new model now. Because 20 years ago, you watched a coach, and they struggled for a year or two, but he was getting his players. They were developing. The third year, they got better. And then they all of a sudden were good, but it took 4 years. Today, it's year by year.
Right.
You don't have that. A coach doesn't get a chance to develop. He gets a summer to develop his team by the fall.
Yeah.
So now it's really not about player development because they're already developed, the transfer portal guys. You try to fit them together, but you're not getting them a lot better. And you're trying to develop your freshmen, but your freshmen are playing against seniors when they play in the league, and they're going to struggle.
Right.
And so, they get discouraged, and then, they're worried about themselves and getting better, and they're not good enough maybe to play against seniors. So it's a very difficult thing to evaluate a coach today. I look at a team that, they're playing hard, they're trying to play together, they're trying to do all the things you have to do to win, and they have a good spirit about them. The team the other night is down 10 points with 3 minutes to go, and they come back and have a chance to take the lead. They had 2 shots to take the lead, and then they got fouled and didn't get called. So, if a coach isn't getting the players to play hard, that's when that's when you look at stuff. But it takes 4 or 5 years for a coach to establish himself, even in today's world. And it's as simple as, like next year we bring some of these guys back, which I think they should come back, and then you get a couple big guys in the transfer portal, and you can all of a sudden have Virginia had nothing. They got 2 really, really good big guys in the transfer portal, a really, really good guard, and now they're a top 25 team. So it's just a matter of getting the right guys and having the money to, we could do this show forever, but that's what it's going to come down to.
Sure.
You get the money, and then you have a chance.
And I definitely think that plays a big role no matter which school you're talking about. Like you said, obviously this year the situation is what it is. We're not sure whether or not Freeman is going to come back or not, presumably. Right now, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to Adrian Autry to try and help to make this team better this year?
Well, they're doing everything they can do to make it better. The players, the younger players have to not leave somebody open at the end of the game, which we did. That's a young player, not in position defensively. It helped to make some free throws. I think they can and will make some more. Now, they're not going to be great, but they'll make some more. But they can't, you got to just keep playing and plugging away. The great thing about this team, they got just hammered by Iowa State, which, Iowa State might be in the top 5 teams in the country. And they came back and beat Tennessee, which is a good team. So they didn't get discouraged. They didn't, get upset. And when they've been behind, they battled back. They just, to me, have not been good enough, partially because of Donnie Freeman not playing. That's a good percentage of it. And partially because guys that I think are good haven't really played good. So those are the two things that I see. The coaches are doing everything they can. They're working hard. Their defensive principles are great. They, for the most part, move the ball pretty good, and they get shots and they miss them. That's not coaching. It's players. At some point, players have to make shots, make free throws, but they're better. They're a much better team, and if Donnie can play, they have a chance to beat anybody they play. And they already proved that they can beat good teams. They should have beaten Houston. I mean, just free throws. It wasn't that they didn't execute well enough. It just makes some free throws. But, it'll be a challenge. And again, it's always going to be a challenge until you get enough money to get more, better players.
You mentioned the younger players. How has your relationship kind of shifted with Carmelo, Anthony, since Kiyan's on the team now? It's an interesting transition.
Well, we've always had a good relationship. I sat with him at practice Friday before the game, and we talked for about an hour. And he understands the game, and he understands that Kiyan's a good player. He's got to get stronger and got to get his shot down. When you're 6'7" and you're thin, you're a shooter. You got to make shots. Yeah. He plays a lot like Lawrence Moten in the way he plays. He's got that sneaky little dribble move in there. But Lawrence Moten became a great shooter, and that's what made Lawrence Moten. And if Kiyan becomes a great shooter, he'll be a great player. But he doesn't have Melo's strength and physicality to go in and bang people. He's not going to do that. So he's got to develop his perimeter game better. That's his big key. And the freshmen, I think, are good. I think they just need time. And the problem is nobody wants to take time. So that's the problem.
I totally get it. Check out, have you seen the newest addition to our set, that jersey?
Oh, yeah.
This one right back there.
We got that as a gift recently. And I know you know that, but since you did mention him, Lawrence Moten was actually the guest who sat in that chair during basketball season for us for the past few seasons.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Lawrence was the easily most underrated player that ever played here. I think he's one of the most underrated players that ever played in college. It's different. College, maybe he didn't make it in the NBA. That's different. There's college, and then there's the NBA. Like Christian Laettner was a great college player. Great college player. He wasn't great in the pros. Lawrence Moten was a great college. Pro Washington was a great college player. And the fact that they didn't play in the NBA doesn't mean they weren't great college players. It means they maybe weren't able to be great NBA players. But from the first day, the first game he played, he was a great player here as a freshman. Just one of those guys. And all-time leading scorer here. We've had some pretty good players here. And he's the all-time leading scorer. He's the second all-time leading scorer in the Big East Conference, and that's a pretty good conference. They've had some Hall of Fame players there. So he's a hugely underrated player, great human being, great. Everybody liked Lawrence Moten. I went down to his funeral, and everybody was there. It was 500 people in that church. It was just packed, and everybody loves the guy, and for a reason. Not because he was a great basketball player, but he was a great person, and everybody knows that. And he's just a tremendous loss, and his legacy in my mind, which is much more important than anybody else's, is he was a great player. Period.
I think that's really well said.
You felt his light the minute he walked into the room. We felt his energy the minute he walked into this studio. So as we sort of, I guess, start to wrap up here, you've had a 40, 50-year-long relationship with Syracuse fans. It has a different perspective right now, after you've retired. But what would your message to Syracuse fans be?
Well, now they all love me.
Every place I go tends to go that way.
Every place I go, they didn't love me a lot. There's a lot of them didn't love me a lot, but it's hard. They have to be patient. There's two things that have to happen. The university has to be able to raise the money that they have to have, and then the fans have to be patient and let that happen. And if it doesn't happen, the fans will go away, and the university will not. If the university doesn't step up to that, and they have to figure out how to do that. It's not easy. It's a lot of money, and they're building dorms and they're improving academic programs, and that's what a university does. But when I went to California to recruit before we were on TV, nobody knew who Syracuse was. I went to recruit there just because, there were some good players there. Sure. We were starting to no one knew. When Pro Washington came here and we were on TV, I went to Washington, everybody at the airport knew who I was. Everybody.
Yeah.
And there's students that come here, 21 students in my class, 20 of them raised their hands and said, I came here because of the athletic program.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's something that's very powerful, and we need to be good in academics. We're a good school, but we need to be good in athletics.
Maintaining that athletic, I guess, brand recognition,
I think so. We'll see what happens, but it can happen.
I always say sports brings people together like it did today. Thank you so much again for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's fun being with you.
This has been the Orange Zone Podcast, sponsored by Apex Entertainment. Be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. Really helps us out when you do that. Otherwise, we'll see you back here next time. Thanks for joining us.